Many countries and national censuses currently enumerate or have previously enumerated the populations by race, ethnicity, nationality, or a combination of these characteristics. Different countries have different classifications and census options for race and ethnicity, nationality, which are not comparable with data from other countries. In addition, many of the race and ethnicity concepts that appear on national censuses worldwide have their origins in Europe or in the views of Europeans, rather than in the views of the locals of these countries. Abkhazia. People in Abkhazia were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census, in addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence. The partially recognized state of Abkhazia also enumerated people by ethnicity in its post-Soviet censuses of 2003 and 2011. Afghanistan. Prior to 2010, Afghanistan had not held a census since 1979 due to the wars and conflicts that have occurred there over those 3 decades. Albania. Albania enumerated people by ethnicity in 1955, 1989, and 2011. The 2011 Albanian census also enumerated people by language used and by the religious beliefs. Angola. The Portuguese asked about race in colonial censuses when they controlled Angola, and they provided 3 options: white, mestizo, or African, black. Africans had to then pick either assimilado or indigenato. Angola has not used any racial categories since its independence in 1975. Tribe and language for Africans were recorded only in 1950 and 1960. Argentina. Argentina enumerated its population by the country of birth from 1869 to the present day. Armenia. People in Armenia were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census, in addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence. Armenia also enumerated people by ethnicity in its post-Soviet censuses of 2001 and 2011. Australia. Australia enumerated its population by race between 1911 and 1966, by racial origin in 1971 and 1976, and by origin since 1981. Azerbaijan. People in Azerbaijan were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census, in addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence. Azerbaijan also enumerated people by ethnicity in its post-Soviet censuses of 1999 and 2009. Bahamas. The population of the Bahamas was enumerated by ethnicity in 1953. Bahrain. Bahrain enumerated people by ethnicity in 1965 and 2010. The 2010 Bahrain census also enumerated people by the religious beliefs. Bangladesh. British India enumerated its population by race between 1872 and 1941. Barbados. The population of Barbados was enumerated by ethnicity in 1946, 1960, 1970, and 1980. Belarus. People in Belarus were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census, in addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence. Belarus also enumerated people by ethnicity in its post-Soviet censuses of 1999 and 2009. Belize. Back when Belize was British Honduras, it enumerated people by ethnicity in 1946. Since gaining independence, Belize has enumerated people by ethnicity from 1980 all the way up to its most recent census in 2010. In the 2012 census, Spanish ethnic groups has overtaken the Creole population by a lot, like 56%. Benin. The people in Benin were enumerated by ethnicity in 1979 and 1992. Bermuda. The people of Bermuda were enumerated by ethnicity since at least 1950 all the way up to the present day. Bolivia. Bolivia enumerated people by ethnicity in 1950, 2001, and 2012. The 2012 census included 40 ethnic group options. However, it did not include mestizo as an option, which critics of current Bolivian President Evo Morales say was because he wants more Bolivians to identify as one of the indigenous groups in order to lend more legitimacy to his indigenous-friendly policies. Bosnia and Herzegovina. The population of Bosnia and Herzegovina was enumerated by ethnicity since at least 1885 all the way up to recent censuses in 1991 and 2013. Botswana. Botswana enumerated people by race in all censuses between 1904 and 1946, and again in the 1964 census, but in no censuses after 1964. People were enumerated by language use in 1946 and 1956 and again in 2001. Brazil. The Brazilian census enumerated people by race in all censuses since 1872 with the exception of 1900, 1920, and 1970. The Brazilian census classifies people by race as either white, black, pardo, yellow, or indigenous. Brunei. Since 1945, Brunei enumerated people by ethnicity in all censuses since 1947. Bulgaria. Bulgaria enumerated people by mother tongue in 1880 and 1887 and used this info to determine their ethnicities. Bulgaria directly enumerated people by ethnicity from 1900 all the way up to its most recent census in 2011, with the exception of the 1985 census. Burma. The people in Burma were enumerated by ethnicity in 1931 and 1953. A new census which plans to enumerate the people of Burma by ethnicity and race is planned to be held in 2014. The 1931 Burmese census generated a lot of anger from non-Burmese ethnic groups who were marked as Burmese on the census. There is hope that the scheduled 2014 Burma census will help empower the various ethnic groups in Burma. Canada. Canada counted people by ethnic origin in 1765 and again from at least 1871 to 2006, with the exception of 1891. The options for ethnicity in the 2006 Canadian census were various kinds of European Canadian, Aboriginal Canadian, and various non-white and non-European groups known officially as visible minorities. The 2011 Canadian census did not ask about race and ethnicity, but the new voluntary National Household Survey for that year did ask about race and ethnicity. Prior to the 1981 Canadian census, respondents could only mark one ethnicity, ethnic ancestry, but the 1981 census and all future ones allowed multiple ethnicity responses. Canada also enumerated its population by place of birth from 1871 to the present day. Cape Verde. Cape Verde enumerated its population by ethnicity in 1950. Central African Republic. The Central African Republic enumerated its population by ethnicity in 1959-1960. Chad. Chad enumerated people by ethnicity in 1993. Chile enumerated people by ethnicity in 1992. China, the People's Republic of China counted people by ethnicity since at least 1952 but does not count people by mother tongue. Democratic Republic of Congo. The people in the Democratic Republic of Congo were enumerated by ethnicity in 1955 to 1958. Republic of Congo. The people in the Republic of Congo were enumerated by ethnicity in 1960, 1974, and 1984. Costa Rica. Costa Rica enumerated people by ethnicity in 1950. Croatia. The people of Croatia were enumerated by ethnicity, nationality under Yugoslavian rule from at least 1953 to the dissolution of Yugoslavia. They were also enumerated by ethnicity in the post-Yugoslavian Croatian censuses of 2001 and 2011. Cyprus. The people of Cyprus were enumerated by ethnicity in 1960. Czech Republic. Czechoslovakia enumerated people by ethnicity in 1921 and 1930, and the Czech Republic did the same thing from 1991 to the present day. Dominica. The people in Dominica were enumerated by ethnicity in 1960 and 1981. Dominican Republic. The people in the Dominican Republic were enumerated by ethnicity in 1950. East Timor. East Timor enumerated its population by ethnicity in 1950. Equatorial Guinea. The population of Equatorial Guinea was enumerated by ethnicity in 1950. Estonia. People in Estonia were enumerated by ethnicity, nationality from 1922 all the way up to the present day. People in Estonia were also enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census. During this time period, Estonia was under the control of the Russian Empire, then independent, then under the control of the Soviet Union, and then independent again since 1991. There were 192 different ethnicity, nationality options in the 2011 Estonian census. Ethiopia. Ethiopia enumerated people by ethnicity in 1994. Fiji. The population of Fiji was enumerated by ethnicity from 1881 all the way up to Fiji's most recent census in 2007. Finland. Finland has enumerated its population by language of most frequent use from at least 1990 to the present day. France. France has not counted individuals by race or ethnicity since at least 1978, when a law was passed that prevented individuals from being enumerated by these categories without their consent or a state committee waiver. The reasons for this are that many French people consider asking people about race and ethnicity to be a contradiction of the principle of equality and equal treatment for all French people. Also, there is a desire to avoid repeating what Vichy France did in regards to its Jewish population and to prevent the National Front from getting more popularity. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy and his administration supported and proposed counting French people by race and ethnicity. Due to criticism, however, this proposal was never implemented, and as of 2013, current French President François Hollande opposes enumerating people by race and ethnicity. Gabon. The population of Gabon was enumerated by ethnicity in 1961, 1961 and 1993. Georgia. People in Georgia were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census. In addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence, Georgia also enumerated people by ethnicity in its only post-Soviet census in 2002. Germany. Germany enumerated its citizens of Jewish descent in 1939 based on the percent of Jewish ancestry that they had. Ghana. The population of Ghana was enumerated by ethnicity in 1960, 2000, and 2010. Grenada. The people of Grenada were enumerated by ethnicity in 1960 and 1981. Guatemala. Guatemala has enumerated people by ethnicity in 1950 and 1964. Guinea. The population of Guinea was enumerated by ethnicity in 1955. Guinea-Bissau. The population of Guinea-Bissau was enumerated by ethnicity in 1950. Guyana. Guyana enumerated people by ethnicity from at least 1946 to until at least 2002. Hungary. Hungary enumerated people by ethnicity in 1880, between 1900 and 1941, and again from 1980 to the present day. India. When it was a British colony, India enumerated its population by race between 1872 and 1941. Indonesia. Indonesia enumerated people by ethnicity in 1930 and 2000, but not in any other censuses. Ireland. The 2002 Irish census enumerated people by the place of birth and their country of citizenship. Ireland introduced an ethnicity question to its census in 2006. The 2011 Irish census enumerated people by ethnicity as well, and offered the options white Irish traveller, other white, black Irish, Asian or Asian Irish, other, are not stated. Israel. The census in Israel directly asked people about their ethnicity only in 1983. However, Israel has used the religion question on its census to determine the ethnic composition of its population from 1948 to the present day. Israel has enumerated its Jewish population by the continent of birth since 1948. Italy. Censuses in Italy do not inquire about race or ethnicity. Only information disposable are those of civil registers, where only the country of birth is noted down. Ivory Coast. The people of Ivory Coast were enumerated by ethnicity in 1948, 1957, 1958, and 1988. The ethnicity data from 1957 1958 was only for the rural areas of the country, though. Jamaica. The population of Jamaica was enumerated by ethnicity in 1960 and again from 1982 all the way up to the present day. Kazakhstan. People in Kazakhstan were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census. In addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence, Kazakhstan also enumerated people by ethnicity in its post-Soviet censuses of 1999 and 2009. Kenya. Since 1945, Kenya enumerated people by ethnicity from 1948 all the way up to its most recent census in 2009. There were some concerns about asking an ethnicity equation in the 2009 census since it came just a year after the disputed Kenyan presidential election of 2007 and the riots that followed it. But Kenya went through with asking about ethnicity in 2009 anyway. Kosovo. The population of Kosovo was enumerated by ethnicity from at least 1948 all the way up to the present day. Kyrgyzstan. People in Kyrgyzstan were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census. In addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence, Kyrgyzstan also enumerated people by ethnicity in its post-Soviet censuses of 1999 and 2009. Latvia. people in Latvia were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census. Latvia enumerated people by ethnicity between 1920 and 1935. The Soviet Union occupied Latvia in 1940, and it enumerated people by ethnicity from 1959 to 1989. Latvia also enumerated people by ethnicity in its post-Soviet censuses of 2000 and 2011. Lesotho, people in Lesotho were enumerated by race between 1904 and 1976, but not after 1976. Language was only recorded in 1946 and 1956. Tribe and language for Africans were recorded only in 1950 and 1960. Lithuania, people in Lithuania were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census. Lithuania enumerated people by ethnicity in its 1923 census and in its 1925 census of its Klaipėda region. The Soviet Union occupied Lithuania in 1940, and it enumerated people by ethnicity from 1959 to 1989. Lithuania also enumerated people by ethnicity in its post-Soviet censuses of 2001 and 2011. Luxembourg. It is illegal to collect statistics about the race, ethnicity, religion or ancestry of Luxembourg citizens. Macedonia. People in Macedonia were enumerated by ethnicity, nationality from at least 1921 all the way up to the present day. In the most recent census in 2002, 64.2% of the population declared themselves to be ethnic Macedonians. The second largest ethnic group in the country was the ethnic Albanians with 25.2%. Other major ethnic groups were Turks, Romani, and Serbs. Malawi. People in Malawi were enumerated by race between 1911 and 1987, but not after 1987. They were enumerated by language only in 1966, 1998, and 2008. They were enumerated by tribal affiliation only in 1926, 1945, and 2008. Malaysia. People in Malaysia were enumerated by ethnicity, race from 1871 to the present day. Mali. Mali enumerated people in some parts of the country by ethnicity in 1950. Mauritius. Mauritius enumerated its population by ethnicity in 1952, 1962, and 1972. Mexico. Mexico enumerates people on whether or not they speak Spanish or indigenous languages. Mexico does not enumerate its population by race and ethnicity directly. Moldova. People in Moldova were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census. In addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence, Moldova also enumerated people by ethnicity in its only post-Soviet census in 2004. Note: most recent census in Moldova took place in summer of 2014. Results will be available in 2015. Monaco. Monaco enumerated people by ethnicity in 1982. Mongolia. Mongolia enumerated people by ethnicity in 1963 and 2000. Montenegro. The population of Montenegro was enumerated by ethnicity from 1909 up to its most recent census in 2011. Morocco. Morocco enumerated people by ethnicity in 1950 and 1971. The 2014 census enumerated people by nationality. Mozambique. People in Mozambique were counted by race only in 1894, 1970, 1997, and 2007. The race categories in Mozambique were the same ones as in Angola, due to both being controlled by Portugal before acquiring their independence. People were counted by language between 1940 and 1997, but not after 1997. Nagorno-Karabakh. People in Nagorno-Karabakh were enumerated by native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census, in addition to the Soviet Union enumerating people by ethnicity for its entire existence. The de facto independent state of Nagorno-Karabakh also enumerated people by ethnicity in its only post-Soviet census of 2005. Namibia. People in Namibia were enumerated by race in all 20th-century censuses but not in the 2001 census. They were enumerated by language in all censuses since 1951. Nauru's. The population of Nauru was enumerated by ethnicity between 1947 and 1977. Nepal. Nepal enumerated people by ethnicity in 1991. Netherlands. Statistics. Netherlands does not keep track of ethnicity or race. Until 1996, Statistics Netherlands recorded nationality of people living in the Netherlands. From 1996 onwards, people are classified as either allochtoon or autochtoon. Allochtoon is a term used for a person living in the Netherlands from whom at least one parent was born outside the Netherlands. An allochtoon born outside the Netherlands is labeled first-generation allochtoon. An allochtoon born in the Netherlands is labeled a second-generation allochtoon. This definition implies that from third generation onwards people is considered autochtoon. New Zealand. New Zealand enumerated people by ethnicity from 1858 to the present day. People were enumerated by tribal affiliation in 1901 and again from 1991 to the present day. Niger. Niger enumerated people by ethnicity in 1959-1960. Nigeria. Nigeria enumerated people by ethnicity in 1963. In addition, Nigeria has announced plans to enumerate its population by ethnicity in its 2016 census. Norway. Norway enumerated the population in the northern part of the country by ethnicity between 1845 and 1930. In the census of 1970, in limited areas in northern Norway, people were identified by ethnicity and language. Such information has not been included in any census since then. Pakistan. British India enumerated its population by race between 1872 and 1941. Palau. Palau enumerated people by ethnicity in 1995. Palestine. The population in the Palestinian territories was enumerated by ethnicity in 1997. Panama. Panama has enumerated people by ethnicity from the 1970 census all the way up to its most recent census in 2010. People in the then United States-controlled Panama Canal Zone were enumerated by ethnicity in 1950 and 1960. Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea only enumerated its population by ethnicity in 1971. Philippines. The Philippines enumerated the population by ethnicity in 1948, 1970 and 2000. Poland. People in Poland were enumerated allegedly by the native tongue in the 1897 Russian Empire census. Sovereign Poland enumerated people by ethnicity, nationality in 1921. It enumerated people by mother tongue in 1931, and used this data to determine ethnicity, nationality. After World War II, the Communist Polish government did not enumerate people by nationality, ethnicity. The post-communist 2002 Polish census did enumerate people by nationality, ethnicity and language used at home. Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico enumerated people by race in its census since at least 1877, with the exception of the period from 1960 to 1990. Romania. Romania enumerated people by ethnicity in 1859 to 1860, 1887, 1899, and in every census since 1930, with the exception of the 1948 census, which enumerated people only by mother tongue. The World Jewish Congress also carried out a census of Romania's Jewish population in 1947.